Information shared on the following program is for general information purposes only. It does not constitute legal, tax, investment, or other advice, nor is it intended to recommend any particular investments, products, or financial instruments. Always seek advice from your financial advisor, attorney, or accountant with regard to investment, legal, or tax questions.
Now, what do you think, son?
I keep playing. I don't think the heavy stuff's going to come down for quite a while.
What in the world?
Welcome to the only show in the country dedicated to helping savers worry less about money. The WorryFree Retirement, with offices in Louisville and Bowling Green. Your host, five-time author and fiduciary, Tony Walker.
In the movie Caddyshack, actor and comedian Bill Murray plays the hilarious role of a greenskeeper at Bushwood Country Club. His name is Carl. Now, it's apparent that Carl knows nothing about taking care of a golf course, much less being a caddy. Nevertheless, Carl is dragged out onto the golf course to caddy for one of the club's members, a priest of all people, who just happens to be playing the best round of his life. Now, as the priest continues to make extraordinary shot after extraordinary shot, the rain begins to fall and the skies threaten. The priest, who obviously wants to shoot the course record, is torn between playing in inclement weather for the best round of his life or risk the chance of getting struck by lightning. Instead of using his better judgment, the priest allows his emotions to cloud his thinking, and instead of running for cover, he instead turns to Carl, who has no experience in the prediction of weather nor the ability to assess the current situation. Carl replies with this famous line, "I'd keep playing. I don't think the heavy stuff will come down for some time." Well, my reaction to Carl's advice and his assessment is, what in the world? Well, welcome, folks, to the Worry-Free Retirement. I am a retirement specialist and fiduciary, Tony Walker, and I'm your host for the next 28 minutes or so, and we're going to be diving into this notion of assessing your situation. So whether you are retired, maybe you want to keep playing, so to speak, or you're past retirement, way into what we call the second half of life. You could even be in your 40s and realize you don't even have an experienced financial caddy to help guide you along life's difficult ways. This whole retirement thing is going to be made so much easier today as we look at something called the 3 halves of life and the second step of our process in the Worry-Free Retirement known as the assessment. So basically, we have to take a look at this second step, and let's review a few key words, because it's not only an assessment, but there's 2 other words that fall into this ability of any advisor, or for that matter, a financial institution that has the ability and knowledge to completely give you an accurate assessment of your situation, which includes your best interest. So here's the 3 key words. We have assessment, the word judgment, and discernment. Now, according to Webster's dictionary, some 500 years ago, the government used assessments to come up with how much people owed on their taxes in the way of property. For instance, you own a home today, I'm sure, and once a year, you get something from your Property Value Administration Office, PVA, and someone out there has made a determination or an assessment of the value of your home. This assessment, of course, translates into how much taxes you're going to owe. They need to know this in order to assess your home's value. You might belong to a country club, or your home might be a part of a homeowners association. Sometimes when things get a little tight, there might be a big project or something that requires more money, so the board of directors, calling the shots, will assess its members to help them pay for it. Now, this word assessment has now kind of translated over into the idea of making a sound judgment, or the act of making a sound judgment. As well, some dictionaries not only bring up the word judgment to help us understand this, but also the word discernment. So how do we define judgment? Judgment is the process of forming an opinion or an evaluation by discerning or in comparing something else to another thing. For instance, back to your home, a lot of times what they're doing is they're trying to assess your home value versus those in the area which are similar, or what we call comparable. We're right now in the middle of closing on a house. It was going to be one of those flip deals. I call it a flop deal. It didn't work out too well, but we finally got somebody that's going to buy their home. They're financing, getting all that arranged. And one of the things they got to have done is an appraisal of this home to make sure it meets the loan qualifications. So again, an appraisal, an assessment is really the same thing. Now, in the case of Carl, he had this knowledge of golf that was very limited, and of course he knew nothing about the weather situation and the idea and the danger of carrying around a bunch of metal golf clubs when it was getting ready to thunder and lightning. So Carl's judgment was clouded because he didn't know better. His opinion, his estimate of the situation was dead wrong, and eventually the priest gets struck by lightning. So when someone is judging something, we must assume that this person judging is someone who has knowledge or authority to be a judge. They're assumed to have the capacity of being honest and not deceptive in their conclusions, which leads to our next key word, discernment. Discernment means we must hope and pray that the one judging or assessing this has a level of discernment which matches their level and ability to assess. So I think that being able to discern takes a lot of time and experience, and some people might even say it's a gift. You either have it or you don't. I know years ago I had a large marketing firm that wanted me to try to train their agents in this process called the WorryFree Retirement, and they wanted to know why it was so successful in helping these savers. And I said, well, I'll give it a try. I'll try to train these agents. So we would have them flying from all over the country at this company's expense, and I did the best I could to train them in the WorryFree Retirement. Now, out of those three things, assessment, I could train them pretty good on how to assess people's situation with the tools we use. In fact, you're going to see that in just a second. I could help them pretty well understand the judgment of where somebody was, where to invest their money, and how that judgment of those investments was going to play out. But what I could not help them with, which was really difficult, was the idea of how to discern people, their personalities, what they're really looking for, looking beyond the questions they ask, and how to make these people feel comfortable in your assessment. That's not a knock on these agents, it's just a fact. My wife, speaking of discernment, she likes to call this bedside manner. She's been a nurse for years, and we talked about this one day, and she said, Tony, I don't know, I've been around a lot of doctors. She said, some people have it, some people don't. Some doctors can quickly figure out what's going on with a patient and then very effectively communicate to that patient what needs to be done next. And we're about out of time out of this segment, but I got to share this. Speaking of golf and weather and using your better judgment and discerning about carrying around a bag full of metal while it's threatening out there, there's me on the course. I love to play golf and I love to walk. And sometimes I've even found myself shooting a good round and the weather turns a little frightening, not use the best judgment. This used to happen when I used to coach youth baseball. Man, this was really scary. Over the years, I've literally coached hundreds of kids, and it would always happen. The other team, for instance, was in the lead. The skies would get a little gray and dark, and we might even see thunder in the background or hear thunder or see lightning. And the other team, which always was playing well, by the way, getting ready to win, the coach over there was like, let's go on, it's fine. And even the umpire, they try to talk them in to keep playing. In the meantime, we see these bolts of lightning getting closer and closer. So again, the idea of having good judgment even is reflected in the Little League baseball coach sometimes. We got this guy who's an accountant by day, and at night, apparently on the Little League field, he turns into a meteorologist. So again, we're talking about the same thing with your money. Who is it you're meeting with, and how are they assessing your situation? So when we return, interesting question we have on Tony in the Trenches, followed by the 3 halves of life, then followed by, I'm going to show you our written game plan with the WorryFree Retirement and how you can get better control of your money with this assessment. You're watching the WorryFree Retirement. I'll be right back.
And now it's time for the adventures of Stella and Scout.
Wait a second.
1, 2, 3.
You've been watching the adventures of Stella and Scout.
Are you retired or retiring soon? Can you afford for your money to take a hit with the stock market being so volatile these days? Nobody can time the market, but having a retirement game plan with Tony Walker Financial gives you peace of mind and sleep insurance. Learn how to prevent losses in your retirement accounts and plan your retirement around an income you can never outlive. Log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com today to schedule a personal meeting with Tony to secure your hard-earned money. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com.
And now it's time for Tony in the Trenches.
Our question is from actually someone I met in person. We'll call her Harriet, who recently asked the following. Tony, since I'm approaching retirement, I've been on the internet and even attended a few of these dinner seminars on retirement, and I'm getting real confused. How do I know if I'm truly working with a trained retirement specialist or not? And why are they so hesitant to give me anything in writing to study as to what they are recommending before I hand over my money to them? Well, Harriet, basically we're going to share with you 5 things you need to look for, 5 clues to find out if you're working with a retirement specialist that's going to do an assessment, a proper assessment, or not. So let's take a look at these. First of all, number 1, we need to know their experience in retirement planning. As of the date of this show, it's April 9th, 2019. I asked Heather, who does a lot of our retirement plans, her and Lisa in her office, how many retirement plans have we done in 2018 alone? The number was 400, just in 2018 alone. So folks, we have a lot of experience in retirement planning. Also, we're going to see this in the next segment, are they going to show you something, a written example of a game plan that's not only helping you now, but helps you forecast where you're going to be? More than likely not. The third thing they're going to do, we've got to look at this and say, are they going to give you a game plan? I have many people come to me, and this is our practice. We let you take the written game plan with you. There's no cost or obligation, and you're under no obligation to do any business with us. Many people come to me and they look at me perplexed and say, well, the last person I went to, they won't give me anything until I turn over my money to them, which again, folks, I would not do that under any circumstances. The next situation, number 4, is does the advisor truly know who you are? Do they have a clear understanding of what it is you want? Now, a good example of this, if you meet with an advisor, and let's say you meet with them for an hour, which to me is too long to meet with anybody, but if they talk 50 minutes and you talk 10, that's a real bad sign. That means they're talking way too much. You should be talking about 50 minutes and they should be talking about 10. I mean, how are they going to know about you if they don't ask the right questions? And finally, speaking of that, who is this advisor? What are their morals? What are their mores? Spiritually, where do they stand? Do they even have a belief in God? Do they think there's something bigger out there in this world other than themselves? You need to start asking advisors a lot of pointed questions about them. I often say, we get to be nosy about you. You need to be really nosy about these advisors, any of them, including yours truly, before you put any money with them. I hope this helps. All right, now let's keep moving here. I want to show you a graphic. We're jumping over to the assessment. You say, well, Tony, what makes your assessment so different? Well, something I noticed years ago when I was exploring the Worry-Free Retirement, when I wrote the book, when I created the software, was I realized there was a pattern here, and I call it the 3 halves of life. And what I realized is the financial world just wants to do a one-size-fits-all. They just give everybody whatever they want. I'll just invest in the stock market. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about your age. Don't worry about your financial personality. And what I found is this is kind of like basketball. We actually all go through 3 halves. We call the first one the first half, and this is where we have people that are generally under the age of 55. They're trying to save for retirement. They're trying to keep their debts down. They're trying to keep their insurance premiums in check, and they're just trying to get by and approach retirement with some semblance of an assessment that includes very little debt and very little expenses. That's about what most people do. We usually recommend overfunded life insurance, Roth IRAs, and we certainly avoid high-interest credit cards. You've got to watch that stuff. Then you move into what I think is a great phase of life. It's called halftime. This is when you're 55, 60 years of age. This is when, folks, you really get to enjoy and spend your money. Now, notice what's happening with this money. The blue represents money. What the financial world would say is, oh, don't spend any money now. You're going to run out. Well, folks, of course they're going to tell you that. How do you think they get paid? They get paid enormous fees to hold on to your money. So, of course, they're not going to want you to spend it. My point is with the Worry-Free Retirement, we want to spend it in this period of time because this is the period of time you can enjoy it. With over 2,000 clients in Tony Walker Financial's arsenal here to look at the experience of those people, many of whom are retired, What I've found, this is what a lot of people don't realize, as you get into the second half of life, this is when you should start relaxing. Notice we don't need as much money because we are spending less money. Now, of course, we can look at things like long-term care and estate planning. We can do all that for you. I'm just talking about your normal expenses. So folks, to get a true assessment, you first have to understand who is this advisor, what is their experience and level of expertise, and do they understand the proper phases of life you're going to go through? Well, we do, and we want that opportunity to meet with you. Why don't you log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com right now and set up a no-obligation appointment to see me in person. During that assessment, okay, we're going to provide you a written game plan. In fact, I'm so confident in this game plan, when we come back for this next segment, I'm going to show you how this proprietary software, the WorryFree Retirement, will liberate you and help you understand that there is a better way. You're watching the WorryFree Retirement. I'll be right back. Have you recently retired, been laid off, or offered a buyout? Has the company you work for recently moved or been acquired or closed its doors forever? Then take advantage of this opportunity to move your 401k to safer territory. Why continue to risk your hard-earned money when you don't have to? Let's meet in person today to discuss your retirement options. Log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com to schedule your no-obligation appointment to meet with me in person. Do it today. Kind of going over our Worry-Free Retirement binder, and we're going to go in detail about what's inside this binder. What do you get absolutely free when you meet with me to go over my assessment of your situation? Let's kind of take a look at these pages inside. Now, I had to create this software. I spent a lot of money, well into the six figures, because I could not find any software that, number one, assessed people's situation properly, but more importantly, how are we going to spend it and use and enjoy this money over a lifetime? So as you can see, it starts out plotting things. You know, I like to think of a retirement game plan as sitting down for the first time and you're trying to understand the game of Monopoly, a very complicated game. Can you imagine if you just got the instruction booklet out and somebody read to you the game of Monopoly without a game board, without the pieces? That would be ludicrous. So what I've learned over the years in working with so many safers, we have to make this simple, and the first thing we do is we want to show you the pieces. Let's go to the next page here. So as you can see in this example, now this is just an example, folks, but what we're doing here is we're moving some of these pieces into different products. Some of these are fixed interest annuities, some are fixed indexed annuities. Here's an example here of we have our Charles Schwab platform. So people say, is that all you do is annuities over there? Well, we do a ton of annuities, quite frankly. We do as many as anybody in the country, but we also offer other products that complement the annuities. So it's not just about the annuities, it's about safeguarding your money and not running out. Now, why do we have that Charles Schwab in there? We need the liquidity, we need the flexibility. Doing so many plans, that's one thing I've realized, folks. When you assess your situation, one thing's for sure, it's going to change. So you've got to have a plan that can accommodate the changes that are going to come your way. Now, what is the next step in our process? So we've created the assessment, we show everything going in, and now we've got the 401ks and the IRAs, which are treated differently sometimes. We might suggest different products because we have things like required minimum distribution. We have that darn tax tumor. We may want to come in here and do some Roth conversions. So when I'm talking to my clients, imagine you're sitting down and we're seeing these boxes and we're imagining where we're going to move money to take advantage of certain things. Now you can follow along. You know, I've got some people, if you throw a spreadsheet out with rows and rows and columns of numbers, I mean, they look like deer in the headlights. Most people I work with, they love the visuals of the effect of the Worry-Free Retirement software. Let's keep moving. It really gets good here. Now, when I had this software designed, what I wanted was the flow of the colors to move forward. So what you'll see, and again, this is just an example, all the different things in this peach color here would be what we call fixed income. We have wages, pensions, Social Security, rental income, for instance. Everything in green in this example is everything we've suggested. And you can see all of a sudden, the blue, by the way, is what we've left alone. And you might say, wait a minute, Tony, you left that $150,000 over in that credit union? Well, there may have been a reason we did that, folks. A lot of people think I shouldn't have any money in the bank, and I would say cash is king, and probably in this assessment, no telling what I came up with here based on their situation, they may have wanted another house. They may have told me they wanted to downsize in the future. Well, I don't want to lock all that money up. I want it to be safe and secure. And so what if it's making 1%? In some cases, that could be the best thing for their situation. So as we flow through, notice now all of a sudden money starts popping out at ages 65. Let's go to the next page. Matt's doing a great job over here. Look at this. Some of this income stops here and we replace it here. Folks, retirement planning is all about income replacement. Many of you are so confused and scared because you've been working all your life. I get it. We call that people at work. You work and work and work and make money, and there's no problem, right, as long as you can work. Then all of a sudden you retire and you're like, where's my money? Well, your money's in all these areas you've saved. So what we're trying to show you is where we can pull money out. We use very conservative assumptions. I think we have another page here, Matt. Let's go to the next screen. Yeah, and then also we summarize everything. We show you what the fees are. We show you if there's any fees or not. Everything as a fiduciary is totally disclosed. If we're using products that pay a commission, I'll even tell you what my commission is. Most advisors run from this. They don't want to tell you commissions, and they sure don't want you to find out the fees. Folks, you have every right to question your advisor to know exactly what they're charging you, and I would put that in writing. In fact, if they're a fiduciary, they're supposed to do that. And then finally, let's kind of go to this last page here. I love this because we do use a lot of fixed indexed annuities, all right? It's not our only product, but we do a ton of them. And we created this software. I've never seen anybody else do this. What we wanted to know is, because some of these products are misrepresented. Many of you are being told you'll make 6, 7, 8, 10%. Folks, those are called income riders. That is not really what you're making. That's the interest rate used to calculate the annuities. And in our program, we've designed to show you what happens to that annuity when you take out money and what the effect of that's going to be. That's called the contract value to your heirs when you die. So, complete discrepancy given to you, complete disclosure, complete transparency. That's what the Worry-Free Retirement is all about. So what in the world are you waiting for? Why wouldn't you want to see this laid out in your situation for your personal retirement planning? It's easy to do. There's no cost or obligation. Why don't you log on now to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. You click on the Let's Get Started. We can either meet in my Bowling Green or Louisville, Kentucky office, or even just talk briefly by phone. There's never a cost or obligation to do so. And yes, when we meet, if you're going to take the trouble to share your information, I'm going to share back my findings with you at no cost or obligation. Do it now. Log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Well, what does the Bible have to say about this idea of assessing your situation and those in the world that would like to get you off your game plan? Good stuff coming up. We're going to be covering the Bible, but first, I got to get me a cup of coffee. You're watching the Worry-Free Retirement.
Win or lose, games are a blast, but playing around with your retirement is serious business. So don't leave your retirement to chance. Get a retirement game plan from well-known retirement specialist Tony Walker. Learn how to be worry-free in retirement with a safe and simple game plan that includes mailbox money for life. To meet in person with Tony, log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com.
Worried about running out of money in retirement? For a limited time, 5-time author and retirement specialist Tony Walker is making available his latest book, Mailbox Money for Life. For your free copy, simply log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com.
Earlier in the show, we featured comedian Bill Murray in the movie Caddyshack. I've got another comedian for you, a real blast from the past, Flip Wilson. Remember old Flip? He was really funny and became very famous for this one particular saying.
Made me buy this.
That's right, the devil made me do it. You know, Flip Wilson's assessment of everything gone wrong or every poor judgment we make was always the same. The devil made me do it. To which I'd say, what in the world? You know, speaking of the devil, remember that saying, speaking of the devil, I've noticed today, even in our churches, there's very little mention of the devil, which is kind of odd since most polls, most assessments of Americans reveal that upwards of 90% of Americans say they are Christians or that they believe in God. Yet I haven't seen any polls that ask some of those same folks if they believe in the devil. And as a result, instead of using discernment to help us deal with all the struggles and tragedies this world can bring on, since nobody ever blames the devil any longer, we instead blame each other. or we make excuses about why we have all these tragedies in our world. Folks, this is foolish and very dangerous. You see, my Bible assesses the situation this way. You cannot have it one way or the other. You either believe in God and also believe in the devil. And while we appreciate the way Flip Wilson made us laugh by making light of the devil, in the end, the devil's assessment of us and how much he wants us to fail and become despondent over life is no laughing matter. You know, God wants us to be worry-free. The devil wants us to be worried sick. God has already judged the devil. The devil, in turn, wants to drag us along with him. God uses the world's ways, and yes, even the struggles, to remind us that He's the one ultimately in control, and that with Him on our side, we have contentment and peace. So it is ironic that God allows the devil to carry on as he does. In fact, look at these scriptures that reminds us of how difficult this world can be. 1 Corinthians 2:12 speaks of the spirit of the world. 1 Corinthians 3:19 speaks of the wisdom of the world, which God says is foolishness. 1 Corinthians 7:31 talks about the form or fashion of this world, which God reminds us is passing away. Titus 2:12 speaks of worldly lusts. 2 Peter 1:4 talks about the corruption that is in the world. And then 1 John 2:16 through 17 refers to all that is in the world. And what is God's assessment, though, in the end? We go to 1 John 4:4. He says, "So those who have placed their trust in Him can say this, greater is He who is in you," that's God, "than he that is in the world." So you can either accept God's liberating assessment of your situation, or you can keep running back to the world's ways for answers and risk getting struck by lightning. One way or the other, you got to trust one or the other. So what in the world do you have to worry about? Well, assuming you're a Christian, nothing. For as the Bible says, greater is He that is in you than he that is in the world. And I trust you'll take that word of encouragement all the way to the bank. Well, how about you? You might be sitting there saying, well, what in the world, Tony? I'm worried about a lot of things here. You've been talking about an assessment. I've never had anybody assess my situation properly. Today you've talked about the idea of being a saver, and I feel like I've been dealing with all these investors. No wonder I'm so worried. So we are trained in the art of retirement planning. We can assess the size of your 401k tax tumor. We can figure out whether people are charging you too much in fees. We can figure out if you need to be taking all this unnecessary risk. And yes, we can figure out a way to keep getting money for the rest of your life, something we call mailbox money. So let me extend an invitation for you and I to talk in person, either by phone or at one of our offices in either Bowling Green or Louisville. It's easy to do, and best of all, to meet with me in person. There is no cost or obligation. So check it out. Go to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and you can click on the Let's Get Started. As well, we have many educational opportunities. You can sign up for our weekly email blasts. You can log on to our YouTube channel at Tony Walker Financial, where you can watch past episodes of the show. We have podcasts of the WorryFree Retirement radio show. You can attend one of many of our lunch and learns, or of course, again, if you'd like a personal assessment, you can meet with me in person. So log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Do it today. You've been watching the WorryFree Retirement. You remember, between now and next week, though, if all else fails, you be worry-free. Make it a good one.
What in the world?